who've done the research and really thought deeply about this project. And so that it's what we've come to out of months of looking at this. And I really I'm excited to present this to you. I'm heartened by Mr. Teitelbaum's comments at the beginning of the meeting tonight that when we all put our efforts together and work toward a common goal, we can really make something extraordinary happen. Everyone's sort of putting a puzzle piece in, and I really think that's absolutely the case with repurposing Decas School into a multi-generational community center for Wareham. A lot of people wonder if we can afford it, and my and our committee's response is we can't afford not to miss an opportunity to use an existing resource that we have at our disposal and repurpose it for existing town needs. Those town needs are the following. We could use Decas's amenities, which are a huge kitchen, industrial grade kitchen, a cafeteria, a stage, a gymnasium, for all of these different community needs that are currently housed in smaller, less ideal locations, for community meals, for senior luncheons, for craft activities, classes, fitness classes, theater productions. The COA has had a long time dream of doing dinner and a movie. It would be perfect in that space. We could have a food pantry on site. We could do cooking classes. We could have a shared use kitchen, which is something that the Baker administration has advocated. It's a kitchen where small entrepreneurs have access to an industrial kitchen so that they can further their work that involves food. The classroom spaces there offer perfect location for early education, after school programs, giving our working parents support that they need, giving our children the best start. They also are a perfect location for a co-working space, which is a shared workspace. Lots of work from home folks, which we have more of because of the pandemic, and independent professionals like architects and attorneys love co-working spaces because it's a great mix of people who are out in the community doing interesting things. It's an opportunity to network. It's a great way to get out of your house if you're like me and you work from home. And it's very popular and supported also by the Baker administration right now as a way to grow the economy. We could also put a maker space there, which is a kind of another take on a co-working space where you have access to tools, to technology, to things like a 3D printer, heat presses, industrial tools for creating something that you would do as an entrepreneur. There's also space for adult credit and non-credit classes. Those classrooms are perfect for all of these uses. The all one level layout is so perfect for children and for our seniors. Right now, the senior center has accessibility issues, potential dangers, and all of those are negated by being on the Decas campus. The 15-acre site gives us so many options and so much potential with the enclosed courtyard, the paved parking lot, playground, sports fields, for so many activities that we could house at Decas. It also checked so many of the boxes of our master plan, which identified the need for a community, a multi-generation, multi-purpose community center that would meet all of Wareham's needs to support children and seniors and to support small business through startup opportunities and incubation support. It also dovetails with a lot of state initiatives. It could support the age-friendly initiative, which we've been part of. It could support the Baker administration's call for more collaborative workspaces, and also for goals put out in the labor market blueprint that said that we would offer more adult basic education offerings and that we would do more work-ready programs for youth and adults. Reusing schools is happening everywhere. Happening all across the state and all across the country. This is one example. This is the Dover Carl Community Center in Dover, Mass. Repurposing makes so much sense. It's more environmentally sustainable. It's more affordable than new construction. Often you have a building that is, in terms of quality, so much more than what you would have with today's materials. It's It's a very common trend right now. Chatham also repurposed their school for a community center. Lennox repurposed an old clubhouse for their community center. A lot of times you'll see recreation departments, COAs, and youth programming all in these community centers. It's definitely a trend happening everywhere. And what I like to say about what about the money, I don't think it's as much about money as it is about vision and problem solving, because a couple of examples here of towns that are considered poorer than our town in terms of our per capita income, and yet they have managed to find a way to have a community center. And some of them are incredibly nice. Both of the examples here, one in Randolph and one in Holyoke, are brand new buildings within the last decade. They have incredible amenities, and somehow they were able to figure this out. And I think Wareham can also figure it out. And I think Decas is the answer to the question. I want to talk a little bit about Dover, Mass. And I know everyone will say, oh, Dover, it's so rich. We can't compare ourselves to Dover. But I think the key about Dover is that they make their community center run on rental income from the space. And it is a net attribute to the budget, not something that draws on the budget. So I, along with Selectman Muniz, met with the director of Parks and Rec for Dover. He's the person who oversees the community center in conjunction with the director of the COA there. And what we found is that their center kind of tracked along the vision we have for the Decas Community Center. It's a repurposed school. It was in worse condition than Decas is. It's 40,000 square feet. All of the building utilities and maintenance costs were offset by rental income. It operates as a net income to the town of a small amount. The space was leased to organizations either on an ongoing basis or hourly rentals. They had at one point or another, they had a daycare, dance studio, cycling business, parent organization housed there. Between the director of this COA and the director of Parks and Rec, they take care of the day-to-day programming, the organization of who is using what space when, they do the query checks, and then the town administrator handles the lease agreements, which is what is envisioned by this Decas Community Center. It's a multi-generational center. It's so successful that now 20 years after they repurposed this school, town meeting has approved a partial renovation of the building, partial rebuild, to give them a brand new facility. And when we asked the director of Parks and Rec if there were problems with this model, they said by and large, it worked very well for them. This is one possibility for how we could repurpose Decas for a community center. Obviously, there are so many possibilities, and this is just one way to sort of visualize what could happen in the space. I won't take you through all of it, but I will highlight in the yellow here on the left, which is part of the original 1969 building. We could house early childhood ed and after school programs. What makes it great is that it has this entrance off to itself with a covered canopy, and it would be easy to sort of self-contain that area for those purposes. Then in this hallway, which is sort of the front of the building, not the parking lot side, we could house adult education classrooms, senior programs in the dark blue. Light blue could be the municipal co-working space. Here to the right, at the other parking lot entrance, in the purple, we could have COA office space, Veterans Affairs office space, Disability Services office space. Then we have all of this 22,000 plus square feet of communal space, which is the huge plus of Decas. The gym, we've got a big gym and a small gym back here in the annex. The cafeteria, the auditorium with the stage, the kitchen, and this incredible courtyard. The back half here anticipates rental spaces. The blue portion here in the modular units could be a perfect food pantry. It has great access to a loading dock and to the kitchen. And the back portion of the 1974 edition, we have left as flexible space. In a future scenario where we define the funding, I think it would be great for senior housing, for affordable senior housing units. Lots of towns in Massachusetts have repurposed schools to contain senior housing units, and it's been very successful. Right now, I think if we were to go down this road, I think temporarily we could take this portion of the building offline, perhaps bring the heating and cooling down to minimal levels, not do daily cleaning there, save some money as we start up, and then bring that online eventually, depending on need. This is the proposed operating budget for such an endeavor. What I would love to point out is that this presents a balanced budget without taking any new money from anywhere. And it uses the Dover model as an example and other community centers that we've looked at, similar funding structures. So we use current utilities based on actuals. We include a facilities operations manager who would work in conjunction with our current COA director. We include maintenance. We include the number from the FY21 school budget for Decas building repairs and maintenance. We come up to about $268,000, which is very in keeping with other community centers that we've looked at in terms of budgets. And then what's common among community centers and senior centers is that they cobble together funding from between 3 and 8 funding sources. It's very common. And what we've done is we've looked at their funding sources and we've amended them here to our purposes. We would do the rentals, which would be the largest generator of income. This scenario considers a large renter who would rent a larger space, let's say for early education, and then some smaller renters at $800 a month and some smaller still rentals at $500 a month. It includes event rentals. It includes the co-working space, and these projected amounts of memberships to use the space are below market rate for anyone around here who's charging for co-working. So it would be kind of a startup level. Sustaining memberships are, think of your public radio station. Mine, I subscribe to one in New Orleans. I pay $6 a month, and I do it every month, and I forget it even exists. If we could get 100 groups, businesses, or individuals to do that with $20, it would create a huge benefit to this budget, and I think we could do it. Fundraising, the amount we have here is based on the FY19 Friends of the Library revenues and the potential for a matching grant that we identified for fundraising for such an activity as this. We also identified 13 grants, which I've given detail in the rest of the document about, that we could start to apply for. And actually this amount, 30,000, is probably lowballing it. Once we get started and we're in, year 2 and year 3, I think we could definitely bring in more grant money than that. I think there's a lot of money left on the table right now. And the adult education program, for credit and non-credit creative classes. Lots of people have expressed interest in this. There was a survey done by the school department in 2017 about the need for adult education. I think it would be a great component to this project. So you'll see that we come to essentially a balanced budget with these income projections. Some assumptions made. So again, that the COA director would collaborate with the facilities manager about the day-to-day use of space using the Dover model, that we may take that flexible space temporarily offline. And actually, if we do, that would decrease the cost because we didn't reduce the utility costs for that. We only reduced the maintenance costs. That the teams who currently access sports fields would continue that access. We love that component to this. We think it would be so great if a family could sort of make a whole day of it. They not only go to see their son or daughter play on the fields at Decas, but maybe they come to the community dinner that night, or they go to dinner at a movie, or maybe their parent is at a class earlier and then goes to watch the game. It just could be such a one-stop scenario for so many families and individuals in Wareham. And then one other assumption is that the rental of the space that is already occurring, the school already has a rental schedule for use of the space. that would continue, and it's assumed that the town's liability is already in place and covering that because it's already happening. I think this is a practical solution to a long-term problem that we don't have an answer to. I also think it avoids a lot of waste. We put $2.4 million of taxpayer money into fixing the roof and putting in a new boiler in Decas within the last 5 years. I think personally, paying money to tear it down would be a tragedy. I also wonder about the money that we borrowed from the MSBA to make those repairs to the building. They do have the right to call back and recapture their money if we don't fulfill the service requirement. I think personally, and the committee thinks that we'd be in a better position. They do have leeway and discretion about recapturing funds, and I think we would certainly be in a better position to fend off such an attempt if we were continuing to use the school, Decas, as an education facility, along with being a community center. I do want to address the building codes. What we've been able to find is that if you're not doing renovation to a certain level, you don't need to bring some old grandfathered code issues up to code, unless, of course, there's a safety issue. But redoing the whole building is not in the plan for this, and certainly wouldn't trigger the kind of 30% threshold that you would get to, where you would have to redo everything in the building. Also, most of the asbestos has been remediated, abated in 2017, and to our knowledge, the only thing that remains are some ceiling tiles that would not need to be removed. I'm starting to wrap up because I know we all have lives that we need to get to, but I did want to say that I do think there are safety valves built into this model to assuage the worries and concerns of people that are legitimate. In the FY22 balanced budget for Wareham, there's a line item for Decas expenses of $70,000 through June 30th of next year. Those cover the cost of keeping the building open. They're baked in already, while we line up rentals for the building to sustain it. I think it would be great and easy to do if the FY23 budget also had that money baked in. It wouldn't incur any additional cost to the town. It wouldn't move money from any other programs. It would just continue to be part of the budget. The $15,000 for the use study is a way for us to identify any issues and allow for guidance and corrections. It's a small amount of money. It can be taken from available funds. And if the model fails, after being given a fair shake, you can always return the building and the land to the town to transfer for sale or lease. It's always an option that would still be on the table if it doesn't work. I'm going to skip to, I just want to skip to the rentals and partnerships, and then I'll be done. So the big component that we bring to the table is that we've done outreach to community partners. The very first two that we did outreach to said they are interested in renting space here, and they are big community partners. So I just want to stop sharing, and I want to talk briefly about South Shore Community Action Council and Damien's Pantry. I sent you both their letters of intent. I sent all the board letters of intent, but I just want to read from them briefly. So the letter of intent from South Shore Community Action Council says that the CEO, Jack Cosio, is writing to express support for Decas for Wareham and the vision of repurposing Decas Elementary School. It's our understanding that the proposed uses include a council on aging, senior center, community meeting space, early education, veteran services, youth programming, etc. We currently lease space from Oak Grove Cape Verdean Cultural Center for our Head Start early education programming. However, the space only allows for 3 classrooms and will be given over for use in its entirety by the Oak Grove Cape Verdean Cultural Center in the next few years. Given regulatory limits on the number of children per classroom and our long-term commitment to providing services for Wareham's children and families, leasing space for 3 classrooms is not a long-term viable solution. What they would like is to easily fill a 4th and 5th classroom, and a 6th classroom could allow expansion of their services to offer an after-school program for school-age children. They see Decas as a perfect fit for this. I see that as a perfect fit for the community. As we've seen during the pandemic, so many women have been displaced from the workforce. They need childcare. We just saw in the paper this week that Wareham is losing other childcare options that we've had. I think it's a perfect fit. Damien's Place has also written a letter of intent that they would love to join with other community services to reside in a Decas community center should that space become available. They are both paying rent. They would both bring funds to the project, and they would both bring incredible services to the community all in one place. I think with that, I'm going to wrap up. There's certainly more info to go over. There's so much that is part of going into this proposal, but I would love to take your questions.